Welcome 5th grade teachers to another Passport to Social Studies video. My name is Mr. Giordano and I'm the Virtual Content Specialist for 5th grade Social Studies. Today we will continue with Unit 3, a United States case study, and our Day 14 lesson. The topic of this lesson is, are students protected by the U.S. Constitution? Our focus question is, in what ways does the political system in the United States address the needs of the diverse people of the nation? And our learning objective is to analyze the First Amendment of the U.S. Constitution and Supreme Court cases about free speech, free expression, and their limitations. Today, your students will be learning more about the First Amendment rights through analyzing how it applies to students in school. Students will be reading the facts of a case called Tinker v. Des Moines and how it connects to the First Amendment. Finally, students will read the summaries of the arguments for both sides of the case, and then as a group decide how they would vote. Students will consider various discussion questions to help them make a decision and take their final vote on the case. As the teacher, it's important to set guidelines for this level of discussion that this type of lesson requires of the students. Today, we will review the discussion prompts that students will explore in groups and explore some guidelines and norms for these discussions. This will focus specifically on the option of crafting these discussion prompts into a larger, whole class Socratic seminar discussion and what this might look like. So let's get started. Today, here are some of the independent work prompts that students will be asked to take a look at after diving deeper into the introduction of the court case that they will be analyzing connected to the First Amendment. At this point, you can pause the video to review some of the discussion questions that the students will be asked to use and to analyze in their group discussions today. Next, students will be reading two arguments of the case and determining which side of the argument they would agree with if they were on the Supreme Court. They're then going to answer the discussion questions that follow on this slide and debate as if they were on the Supreme Court how they would decide this case. They are going to consider which arguments they find more convincing and why. They're also going to look at some of these questions, such as if the speech is offensive, distasteful, objectionable, or unpleasant. They're going to also consider if the speech is a threat to others, if the speech is compromising school safety, if the speech is obscene or slanderous or untruthful, and if the speech is likely to cause a substantial disruption in the operation of the school. This type of questioning and this level of discussion really requires students to be able to discuss across differences and be able to listen effectively and engage with one another despite differences in opinions on how they might rule as the Supreme Court. One strategy for this type of activity is to actually have the students conduct these conversations in a larger setting, whether it be in person or on a Google Meet video session as a Socratic seminar. So what exactly does this mean? What is a Socratic seminar? So before we jump into this, it's also important to remember that there's a procedure for how the students are going to discuss this in their group. You can pause the video now to take a look at this procedure, but we're going to proceed and look at what this might look like instead of it being as a group, as a full class Socratic seminar discussion. So a Socratic seminar, what is this? Well, the purpose of a Socratic seminar is to achieve deeper understanding about the ideas and values of a particular topic or text by questioning and examining issues related to a specific content and articulating different points of view. The group conversation assists students in constructing meaning through their participation in a collaborative dialogue that nurtures and builds students' analysis, interpretation, questioning, listening, public speaking, and participation skills. So again, a Socratic seminar is really about asking questions, not necessarily coming to an answer or debating, but working to prompt and build off one another's questions to deeper thinking. So for the Socratic seminar structure, how would this be set up? Well, each participant will be assigned a peer coach. So essentially, half the class will be participating at one point in time, while the other half of the class is listening as a coach, and they'll be assigned to a specific peer to monitor. The coach will take notes on the performance of their peer in the discussion and then offer their peer feedback. The coach will take notes on different aspects of the peers' involvement in the discussion, including question posing, answering prompts, inviting others into the discussion, body language, etc. There will be 2 rounds of the Socratic Seminar discussion with a coaching moment in between the 2 sessions where the coach will give feedback to their partner in the hopes that for the second round, the partner can then apply that feedback to improve their performance and engage deeper in the conversation. Finally, the groups will switch and the process will be repeated after the 2 rounds, where the first discussion participant will now become the coach and the original coach will now become a discussion participant. So it's important to set guidelines for a Socratic seminar with your class, and you can certainly use many of these same guidelines even with your students if you're going to do this activity just in small groups. So at this point, you can certainly pause this video to take a look more deeply at the Socratic seminar expectations and ground rules. But to go over a few together, the first one speaks about students not having to raise their hands. This type of discussion is really about students being able to speak freely and watching each other's body language so they know the right time to jump into the conversation. This takes practice, but it's really nurturing those real life discussion skills that students will need as they progress into middle school. It's also considering some of the other points, such as students being able to listen closely to one another and share ideas, trying not to cut anyone else off, as well as elaborating on other ideas that students are posing, referring to any text being discussed in the conversation and using evidence to support their ideas, asking for clarification from one another when it's needed, and also inviting others into the conversation who might have a difficult time jumping in or who might be a little bit more shy, trying to open that conversation up to more perspectives to really have that equity of voice. A strategy that I use in my classroom is that I give students a purple index card and I invite them to hold that up as a signal to the rest of the circle or the Socratic seminar that they would like to be invited into the conversation. They're just having a difficult time actually jumping in. If you're doing this on a Google Meet, maybe you can ask them to just press the raise your hand, and that could be a signal to the other students in the conversation to invite that individual into the discussion. As well as, of course, considering all viewpoints in the discussion, sticking to the topic under discussion, and knowing that the students are responsible for the quality of the discussion. The more prepared they are, the more ideas they have to share, the more meaningful and stronger the overall discussion will be. But of course, last but not least, the golden rule of a Socratic seminar is to learn from one another, to try to actually open up your mind and become more tolerant about thinking and listening about other perspectives, even if you may not agree with those perspectives. And that's really the power of a Socratic seminar. Especially, again, as students progress into middle school, these are skills that they'll certainly need in class, but also in their everyday routines and everyday life as a middle school student.